If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and we'll see you next week. Hey everybody, this is your buddy Ryan Singer. Welcome to another episode of Me and Paranormal You. We're doing a third year bonus. We're going to do a third year bonus. We are going to do a third year bonus. So I just remixed that a little bit on accident. Full disclosure, I planned on having a very special episode ready for you today, and I've spent my entire day trying to edit it, and I was unable to even get 3/4 of the way through it. So it was a nearly 4-hour thing that I was trying to edit down to, as short as I could get it and have it be reasonably coherent. And, I wanted it to be interesting and understandable for people, audio version and video version. What is that, you ask? That is Paranormal Carnival, the Paranormal Carnival. We did a test run last night. Recorded for almost 4 hours. Didn't know who was going to pop in. I think at one point we had 8 people on the Zoom call. I can't wait to share that with you. I will be sharing the video on YouTube, and I'll be sharing the audio on the Paranormal Carnival feed, which will have its own RSS feed, and also on the Me and Paranormal You feed, just to get it launched. And I will implore you to follow that podcast. That is going to be, as it stands right now, because of the busy nature of my schedule and other people's schedules. If I had to guess, it would be at least once a month. I can't promise that it would be even every other week at this point. It's a huge ask for myself and other people to carve out time for something like that. But, it's super fun and it's super enjoyable. And also I need lead up time to prepare things. I want to be preparing my own music, videos, potentially segments, etc. Not in the way that I will be doing with Late Night on the Astral Plane. That'll be more like a late night talk show kind of paranormal, mostly comedy show. Paranormal Carnival is going to be, we have no idea who's going to pop into the tent. And I got to tell you, we had everybody who popped into the tent was incredible last night. And you're going to love it. And like I said, I'm about 3/4 of the way through. Right now, it's about an hour and 40 minutes. I think it's probably going to be close to 2.5 hours. I will be keeping them shorter than that in the future, 100%. I will be recording another one on March 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But here's the catch. It will also be a live stream. Paranormal Carnival will be a live stream show. And as of right now, it's going to be on 3/11. I don't know if it's going to live on Tuesdays. I don't think it is, because I think my buddy Sean's show is on Tuesdays at 8, or is it Wednesdays at 8? I got to double check that, the Halfway OK show. I don't want to compete against my dear friend Sean Green for the Halfway OK show, which is a great live stream. You should check that out. But due to the nature of scheduling, etc., the next one will be on 3/11, which is a Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. That, like I said, will be live streamed. I as of right now, I have no idea who's going to be popping in. It could just be me rambling for an hour and a half, 2 hours, solo about things. Because trust me, I got, as you well know, because of the abundance of 30-year bonuses lately. There's a lot to ramble about in the world of the paranormal right now. We were talking earlier this week about altered states. We kind of got into altered states, ACS or ASC, altered state consciousness a little bit. There's been a sync circus happening around altered states for me, and there was a huge sync circus happening last night during our recording of the Paranormal Carnival, the very first episode. And I got to tell you, I brought up in the conversation that episode will go up next week at some point. So 100% guarantee that goes up next week, because tomorrow or the next few days before I leave, I will be leaving to go on a trip here early next week. So I have to get it done before then. I next week might be a little light, and the week after might be a little light on the podcast front, because unless I just bust my ass and get a bunch of recordings done over the weekend. But we won't worry about the future right now. Let's stay in the moment. It's going to be, the Paranormal Carnival is going to be rad. Obviously, I'll post links and things like that to the podcast so you can follow it. I'd love for you to jump on board. It'll be, as of right now, like I said, once a month. Maybe we get to, twice a month. Maybe we get to weekly at some point. Who knows? Ideally, we would. As the community and as the tent gets bigger. We were talking about altered states of consciousness and the sync storm that's happening around this. And FYI as well, I received in the mail just this evening the Disclosure Project Briefing Document 2025 by Dr. Stephen Greer, Sensitive and Confidential. This is the report that was submitted to the new administration, 315 pages long. I'm going to do my damnedest. I'm going to do my damnedest to read this for you and do detailed notes. And I will be doing, it'll probably have to be its own kind of mini series inside the show kind of thing to get through it. I'd recommend buying the book off Dr. Stephen Greer's website. I mean, it is like $40. So, I mean, if you don't have the time to read something like this, I'm going to do my damnedest to make time for you. I am interested in it. I will, at the very least, be reading most of it and be bringing you that information. So that's what that's my goal is, and so it's my goal. So I'll do it. Multiple different things have been sent to me that have just kind of rattled me a little bit. It rattled, shake, rattle, and rolled me in a good way. A friend of mine sent me an article from Frontiers in Psychology. It's a research paper about spontaneous spiritual awakenings, phenomenology, altered states, individual differences, and well-being. Now, this is no accident that I'm getting this. I'd like to read a little bit from this article, just the beginning of it, to give you a taste of what I'm talking about here as we dig deeper into altered states. Why do I care so much, and why am I putting this much attention and interest into altered states? It's like, hey, Singer, we've all done mushrooms. We've all drank a lot of coffee. We've all had a few bourbons or smoked a cigar or, a joint or a cigarette. We've all lucid dreamt before or had a deep meditation. Yeah, but that's all fine and dandy. But what we're driving at here is this. The future is becoming more and more clear. I believe the future is becoming more and more clear. And the key to that future is accessing altered states of consciousness or different modes of consciousness. And I think it's important to try to get a greater understanding of what even that means. So what does that even mean, right? And you know me, I love SPEs, spontaneous paranormal experiences, right? I've had a spontaneous paranormal experience. It's the thing that cracked me open originally and drove me to where I am here today and dropped me off, right? And that is, of course, the first experience I had of the shape-shifting of the morphing. And boy, oh boy, did I go down a rabbit hole of that last night. Until almost 4 a.m. I'm having a faulty memory moment. Because, and I will disclose what I'm talking about. You know me, I love disclosure. But there are certain things I obviously cannot and will not disclose about personal experiences that involve other people who do not wish to be talked about. And I will honor those requests. However, I will tell you everything within my range of feeling comfortable in telling you about these things, okay? And, that is my promise to you. I won't hold anything back personally. I like to be an open book in that way, if at all possible. For me, to a fault, maybe, sure, okay? To a fault, sure. But we got to get this information out there. We got to, and by information, I don't mean like top secret government documents. I'm talking about just personal experiences, no matter how strange, weird, or crazy they may seem. So at 4 a.m, I'm like, you have to go to bed, man. You have to go to bed. And I was like, okay, it was too late to, I did a different kind of, I didn't do the gateway experience meditation because it's a full moon. So I was doing like a shedding meditation of a different kind. And and so then I had this thing happen. And someone mentioned a place to me recently. And then deep diving into something else. And this is, by the way, a very random place. And it's not a place you've even probably heard of. And like I said, I will disclose more details about this at some point in the future once I can solve the mystery. But remembering this random place somewhere deep in my mind, to the point where I have forgotten who told me about it or what they were saying about this place, while on a separate quest for information, completely forgot that this small, random, obscure, in the middle of nowhere place was also very closely related to me. And now I am spiraling, trying to figure out what this connection means. We got to take a quick break. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. $3 a month. No commercials. Ever. Free patrons. You get some too sometimes. Go jump over there. And we're back. Hey, how you doing? I was talking about how I was spiraling at 4 a.m. Pacific Coast time, Pacific Standard Time. And I have to get to the bottom of this. And when I do, I'll tell you about it, okay? But until then, I'm not going to tell you about it. There's no purpose for me to divulge some of the details. But you've probably had these experiences, right? Where you're just like, oh my God, I know this is on the tip of my mind. It's on the tip of my mind. Oops, sorry about that. It's on the tip of my mind, and I can't figure it out. And it's driving me bonkers. Anyway, okay, so let's get back to this article from the Frontiers in Psychology, sent to me by a friend of mine yesterday. Written by Jessica Sophie Corneli and David Luke. Cornell. It's Corn, E-I-L-L-E. So Corneli, and David Luke. And this is from 2021, August 19th. Dealing with original research. So spontaneous spiritual awakenings, SSAs, are subjective experiences characterized by a sudden sense of direct contact, union, or complete non-dual merging, parenthetically experience of oneness, with a perceived ultimate reality, the universe, God, or the divine. These profound transformative experiences have scarcely been researched, despite extensive anecdotal evidence suggesting their potential to catalyze drastic, long-term, and often positive shifts in perception, worldview, and well-being. Now let's pause real quick. Did we talk about this in the last episode? I feel like we touched on this about something that really, it's a paradigm. We were talking about paradigm shifts, right? And basically that's what they're saying there. They're talking about, shifts in perception, worldview, and well-being. That we're talking about paradigm shifts of some kind. And well-being, I don't know. We're going to have to see what they mean. We're going to see if they're talking about for better or for worse. The aims of this study were to investigate the phenomenological variances of these experiences, including the potential differences between SSAs and spontaneous Kundalini awakenings, SKAs, a subset of awakening experiences that the authors postulate may produce a higher likelihood of both physical and negative effects, to explore how these experiences compare to other altered states of consciousness, including those mediated by certain psychedelic substances, and understand their impact on well-being. Personality trait absorption and temporal lobe lability, TLL, were assessed as predictors of spontaneous spiritual and Kundalini awakenings. A mixed within and between participants self-report survey design was adopted. Whatever that means. Okay, so yeah, we kind of get it. A total of 152 participants reporting their most powerful spontaneous spiritual awakenings or Kundalini awakenings completed questionnaires measuring non-dual, Kundalini, and mystical experience, as well as depth of altered states of consciousness and trait absorption and TLL. Spontaneous Kundalini awakenings were found to be significantly more physical, but not significantly more negative than spontaneous spiritual awakenings. And overall, both sets of experiences were perceived to be overwhelmingly more positive than negative, even in cases where the experience was initially challenging. The phenomenological distribution of spontaneous spiritual awakenings and Kundalini awakenings was similar to other measured altered states of consciousness, although greater in magnitude, and appeared most similar in distribution and magnitude to drug-induced altered states of consciousness, particularly classic psychedelics, DMT, and psilocybin. Temporal lobe lability and trait absorption were found to predict these awakenings, predict the awakening experience. The limitations and implications of these findings are discussed. Now, they go on to talk about, kind of give you an overview of spiritual awakening. So let's get into that a little bit. Spiritual awakening is a term given to describe a subjective experience in which an individual's ego transcends their ordinary, finite sense of self to encompass a wider, infinite sense of truth or reality. These deeply embodied noetic experiences are often perceived as a direct connection, communion, or non-dual merging with an unlimited and universal consciousness, the divine or God in perceived oneness. That's from James in 1985. I think we're talking about Henry James there, one of the founders of the American Psychical Research Society, the APSR, or APRS. I always fuck up that acronym. Experiences of spiritual awakening, whether gradual or sudden, intentionally induced or spontaneous, typically evoke an ineffable sense of deep inner knowing, understanding, remembering, or unveiling of one's true nature, as well as experiences of peace and equanimity, bliss, ecstasy, and aliveness, feelings of awe, sacredness, gratitude, and reverence, and of abundant, unconditional love. These profound experiences may also trigger a sense of transcendence of time and space, as well as an increase in physical and mental sensitivity to internal and external stimuli, including sensitivity to color, light, touch, sounds, and smell. In some cases, they may be accompanied by strong physical sensations, as appears to be more typical in what are usually referred to as Kundalini awakenings. including but not limited to sensations of heat or energy rising or shooting up in the body, typically in and around the spine, bursts of tingling, tickling, prickling in the body, particularly around the crown of the head, brow point, and heart space. Electric sensations in the extremities of body, perceived light emanating from the body, particularly from the head and heart. There's also orgasmic sensations, disruptions in the digestive system, and spontaneous involuntary movements, including trembling or shaking, asanas, yogic postures, and mudras, hand postures. Okay, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there is that world of like, oh, Kundalini rising, it's like for some people it does have some sexual connotations. I guess that is just one very tiny component and aspect of this. And when you look at the grand scheme of things, let's get back to this and just one or two more sentences here, and we'll expound upon it. Occasionally, these sensory sensitivities may extend to paranormal-like experiences, with people reporting increased synchronicities, visions of an archetypal or symbolic nature, telepathic experiences, feeling spiritual presences, hearing sounds or voices not produced externally, and seeing things that are not materially present. Now, what's interesting here, let's just repeat that just for the sake of my own sanity here. Occasionally, these sensory sensitivities may extend to paranormal-like experiences, with people reporting increased synchronicities, visions of an archetypal or symbolic nature, telepathic experiences, and more and more and more and more. Now, we 100% were getting into this earlier on the episode earlier this week. I implore you, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that, and then come back to this part of this third-year bonus, because we were talking about symbols and archetypes and the language, right? The language of consciousness. Maybe I should go back and listen to it as well, right? I mean, it's kind of bonkers. I mean, it's a synchronicity even reading the sentence about synchronicities. And if you're like me, you love synchronicities because they remind you to be in the moment of your life. They anchor me into now, or they throttle me into now, more like it. We're going to be right back after another short break. You're listening to me and Paranormal You with Ryan Singer. That's me, everybody. Don't forget Paranormal Carnival coming next week. There will be a sneak peek of it over at the Patreon page. Hint, hint. And we have returned to the program. Remember, you can always just hit that little fast forward button on whatever podcast player you're using and hit it a few times, and you'll probably just jump right back in to where we left off. Now, it is interesting because we're talking about symbols. We're talking about, spontaneous spiritual awakenings. And what is the correlation between those and spontaneous paranormal experiences? One could argue that they could be the same thing in many ways when you consider that under the definition of examples of spontaneous spiritual awakenings, they may extend to paranormal-like experiences, synchronicities, archetypal or symbolic nature, telepathic experiences. Now, the telepathic experience, I understand why it can be looped in here, and that's why I think it says occasionally may extend to. But I think we'll all understand here in the future at some point that the telepathic experience is to be labeled strictly a spiritual experience would be, in hindsight, maybe not the most accurate. Now, that's not to say that there's not a component of spirituality in what it is that the human mind and the human creature, which is more than the body, more than, the meat suit here. That's not to say that it's not part of it, that it's not a little bit of everything creates the experience, at least in this physical form, this go around, or at least in our current state of awareness, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you start seeing symbols and or you start speaking in a symbolic language, and for me there is a danger there, and danger is an interesting word. I'm not quite sure it's the most accurate word to be used here, but I'm using it. There's a little trepidation for me to, like, for example, surrender to a completely symbolic way of communicating that that may make it more difficult, at the very least, for one to operate within the parameters of the materialistic world, which has been built and created and agreed upon, to do the basic things, to go and do, or to gather, or to get, or to cooperate, or to help, or to assist, or to communicate with strangers who aren't speaking symbolically. That is, now when it comes to, and there is a difficulty there, because the reason I think that this may be the case, or it's occurring to me now, I'm talking, so much like everyone else on the planet, when we talk, I love how we just make everything up as we go. So yeah, I believe this, and okay, well, I guess I'm going to find out what I believe right now too, me and you both together. So when you are a performer, or a writer, an entertainer of any kind, and you have to create your own material, analogy, metaphor, simile, these things are used to convey humor, drama, meaning, etc. These are symbolic. These are ways of this. I mean, this is symbolic language, right? This is probably, if symbolic language, if we were to look at it on a scale of, like, let's say symbolic language was like the schooling system here in the United States, metaphor, simile, analogy would be grade school, right? K through 9 or whatever, K through 8, whatever it is. Then you start getting into deep symbolic language, like deeply symbolic language, when you're only able to communicate in symbolic language. That's, for me, that feels like that's kind of master's. You're getting your master's degree in college at that point, right? Potentially even PhD, although PhD might be more the telepathic communication through symbology or through symbols. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm using an analogy or a metaphor. So it's very onomatopoeic, even though a lot of people would say that's not onomatopoeia, Ryan. And I'm saying, please, let's not limit the possibilities what onomatopoeia can be. Onomatopoeia wants to grow up and be so much more than what you're allowing it. So let's embrace that, and let's encourage onomatopoeia to grow up and be whatever it wants, including a device in language other than just whiz, bang, pop. Okay. So let's let it expand. Let's let it, break free and spread its wings, shall we? So the symbolic language can be difficult. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because I think synchronicities, they deal in symbology. And synchronicities can be, they're the thing that leaves you clues, potentially. Or they can be interpreted as a clue. And that clue is a symbol. And like, okay, well, what does this clue mean? We always want to, but what does it mean? Okay, well, what's this clue about? What's it mean? That's a symbol. It's representing something. It has meaning imbued that is, I don't know, maybe at first hidden, not necessarily because it's trying to hide it from you, but it's just below the surface. That's what I mean. Right? And I think so many different objects, so many different things, they can emotionally mean so many things and so many different things to different people. Yet there are some that resonate in a way, the major archetypes, the major arcana of symbology, right? Those symbols, which you often hear about in dream interpretation, right? You'll hear through dream interpretation certain things in everyone's dreams, supposedly or allegedly or potentially represent the same things. This has been used at least has been portrayed to be used in movies and TV and psychology or psychiatry and through dream analysis and trying to decode the meaning of our dreams. We should get Samantha Fay back on here. She just put out another book. We were talking about her and Deb Bowen last night, the psychic teachers. If you've never checked them out, you have to. I implore you to go do that as soon as humanly or alienly possible. Is that how you'd say that? I'm not 100% sure, but we're going to go with it. We got to take another little break here. We're going to come back and we might dip into this article just a little bit more, this research article. And I'm going to dip in. We're going to do a random book open on the Disclosure Project briefing document 2025, just so you can get a taste of what we're going to be trying to, or what I'm going to be trying to crack open over here for you and distill into understandable and reasonable language for people like us. So we're going to be right back after this short break. And we're back. Hey, you can run, but you cannot hide from the symbology, the magic symbols of the universe, and synchronicities therein. That's what we're kind of talking about. Can you communicate only in synchronicities? I dare say that that's a slippery slope, going that route. Nonetheless, it is. What happened to the article here? Sorry, I got a little distracted during the commercial break there. I got a little too. I was playing too fast, and I was playing too loose. You understand? So let me bring that back up. Here we go. We're back with it now. I just had another thing happen during the break. It was great. Anyway, let's get back into this article. Frontiers and psychology. This is actually no stop. I hate when the computer starts asking me all kinds of questions about things I don't want to do with all these pop-up windows. Further in the article, they talk about these experiences are therefore, or can be therefore, help you to fall in love with engagement with life, and the experiences are therefore considered deeply healing. Some of the cognitive and behavioral shifts linked to these experiences include. Now, this is we're getting to the meat and potatoes of the paradigm shift, right, or the behavioral changes, right? So. Now this is where it starts getting pretty interesting, and I think you'll already understand and probably anticipate and know this. Some of the cognitive and behavioral shifts linked to these experiences include increased empathy, compassion, gratitude, openness, trust, altruism, curiosity, awareness, creativity, authenticity, integrity, a sense of higher purpose and meaning in life, a sense of virtuous mission or selfless service towards humanity, a sense of being reborn and liberated from past attitudes and beliefs, a sense of devotion to love-based values, and a rejection of religiousness and materialistic lifestyles. These deep shifts may lead to radical changes in religious and philosophical views, relationships, and career paths. Spirituality may act as a buffer against stress and improves coping against the depressive effects of stressful events, promoting positivity, equanimity, optimism, peace, and resilience. It is perhaps unsurprising, therefore, that spiritual Kundalini awakenings are associated with a wealth of sustained positive therapeutic outcomes, such as a decreased risk of committing suicide among suicidal individuals following their experience. Psilocybin-occasioned mystical experiences have been linked to sustained improvements in treatment-resistant depression and significant reductions in anxiety, hopelessness, and fear of death in patients with life-threatening cancer. It's from a 2016 study. Both psilocybin-occasioned mystical experiences and spiritual or kundalini awakenings attained without the use of drugs have been linked to persisting positive effects in the treatment of treatment-resistant alcohol and tobacco addiction, with several studies indicating a 3 to 4-fold increase in abstinence from addiction following spiritual awakening. And if you know me like you do, 2.5 years nicotine-free, I'm all about that. You know, I'm all about leaving the nicotine monster in your wake, leave its carcass lifeless and without strength of grip in its hands to cling on to your ankles as you move forward and leave it behind you. I'd love for you to get free from nicotine. The Easy Way to Stop Smoking by Alan Carr. I recommend the book or the audiobook. Audiobook is what I used the last 12 times I read it or listened to it to get free. Now, let's get into the other side of the coin here. Parallels have been drawn between spiritual and kundalini awakenings and psychopathologies such as bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, both by psychiatrists and transpersonal psychologists, though attempts have been made to separate both sets of experiences. Recent studies observing the differences and similarities between spiritual emergency and psychosis have found spiritual emergency to diverge significantly from psychosis in alogia and in depression, anxiety, and stress. Thus, while overlaps are considerable, spiritual and kundalini awakenings, including spiritual emergencies, are generally understood not be indicative of psychopathology, even if they may be psychologically challenging at times. It is interesting to understand the framework and to try to put it in a box or understand specifically a spontaneous spiritual awakening. We know how difficult it is to put an SPE in a box, a spontaneous paranormal experience. It's just as difficult to box up a spontaneous spiritual awakening, or potentially a spontaneous kundalini awakening if you're not practicing kundalini or engaged in the act of kundalini or the art, or So what do we do when these happen? Well, oftentimes I can speak from the SPE point of view. You feel crazy and you don't communicate, and you shut down communication and you cut off information. You then later, hopefully, will seek out camaraderie, comfort, and community from such a thing. You will privately or secretly be searching for information, hoping to not, raise any alarm bells for those around you and make them panic and think that you've you're out of your gourd, right? These things happen. So with a spontaneous spiritual awakening, it is interesting because, I don't know if this qualifies, and I'll tread lightly here. But I've been involved in a documentary project. I edited the film, Fits, Friends in the Sky. I would not say that it classifies as a full-on spontaneous spiritual awakening for Greg Feynman, who, he smoked cigarettes, he wasn't religious. When I first met him, I smoked, he smoked. I've known him for years now, I guess. Anyway, Greg is very religious now, or he's very spiritual. No, he ministers at prisons. He no longer smokes. He gives all credit to his faith, and to Fitz for getting him off cigarettes and for turning his life around and for, helping him embrace humility. Is this a spontaneous spiritual awakening? Is this what we are talking about? Or is this what we are reading about in this article? Now, there's a lot more. There's 19 pages of this article. I've barely touched the surface here. I'll link it or upload it maybe somewhere if you're interested in reading it. But it is interesting, right? Profound paranormal experiences will change people. They changed me. They've changed you. If you're one of the people who have experienced them, they change our worldview and they change our behavior. They change the way we process information moving forward, much in the same way the SSA or SKA will do that. Now, what does it do to us, right? It doesn't, that's the interesting thing, because I don't think it does anything to us. It enables us to enact change within ourselves. Now, there are situations where you can have an experience where, at least initially, the results are not good. 2019, Florida expedition. The SPE that I experienced there, that rattled me, broke me, made me not be able to sleep with my lights off for, whatever it was, 6 to 12 months, whatever it was, to where I still have a therapist that I see on a weekly basis because of it, who specializes in PTSD. Now, they can be terrifying, and that is not something that I think everyone needs to experience. I wouldn't want you to. If you've never experienced something like that, I don't think you need to know what it's like, man, to know what I'm talking about. You need to have this kind of terrifying paranormal experience to get it. I don't think you do. I don't think I needed to. If I could go back, how they say, I've talked about this a bunch, but I don't remember the studies that even reference it anymore, but where they prove it, like the worst thing that ever happened to you, you check back with those people in 5-10 years and they'll often say it's the best thing that ever happened to me because it enacted some kind of change. They made some kind of change because of it in their life. And so they've turned the worst thing into the best thing, and they'll measure the brain, and they're not lying when they say it. And people on the outside will be like, it's impossible. How could you say that now? And they are not lying when they say it. They truly believe it, and they know it. So would I go back in time and skip the experience I had? No, I wouldn't. Because I have a deeper appreciation for many things since that moment. And one of them is being with other people in the dark in the woods. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. Paranormal Carnival coming soon. All right, we're back. And I just want to put a bow on this, what we've been reading from. This article sent to me from my friend. And what a beautiful thing. The timing was just bonkers. I love it. This is a really fascinating article. I just want to put a bow on the effects on well-being, because they have a section about that towards the end of the article where they kind of, cap it up. The highest scoring items on these tests, right, on these scales, suggest that the general characteristics of spontaneous spiritual awakenings and spontaneous Kundalini awakenings are of a predominantly positive nature. Additionally, an overwhelming majority of participants reported that their awakenings had a predominantly positive impact on their well-being in both the short and long terms, when asked whether their experience was predominantly positive or negative. A higher percentage of participants reporting the positive long-term well-being effects mediated by these awakenings than those reporting positive short-term well-being effects suggests that these awakenings may still be perceived as overwhelmingly positive in the long term, even when the experience was initially challenging. It is also worth noting that over half of our participants reported psychological turmoil or trauma as a significant factor which they believe led them to have the experience, making it the highest reported factor in our sample. So, I mean, that kind of echoes what I was just talking about, I think, right before the break here, or I think, yeah, how I wouldn't trade it in. Now, was I having trauma before that led me to that experience? No, I wasn't in a situation that led to the awakening or to the spontaneous paranormal experience. So I do want to clarify. I'm talking about SPEs are classified as experiences, as opposed to this article, which is dealing with awakenings, at least specifically with the spontaneous spiritual and spontaneous kundalini awakenings. Okay. So there's a nuance here, and I'm not just trying to clump all this together and cherry pick. At the end of the day, I think what we learn is that the human being, the curious mind, the seeker, they will take in new information. They will process and integrate experience into their life moving forward, which is one of the fundamental reasons. And we're talking about things that are unexpected. We're talking about spontaneous things that are life-changing, shattering of paradigms. These people are reporting overwhelmingly, predominantly, to use their language, positive long-term and short-term, but long-term effects. What this teaches us and shows us is that human beings are able to have paradigms shattered, life-altering events that can happen spontaneously and change the way we view the world completely. And we will integrate those experiences, and we will take it upon ourselves to make changes, and we will alter not only the state of our consciousness, but our view of what is possible and what the world is as we move forward with our lives. You know what I'm getting at here. Aliens, ghosts, creatures, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, these are big things. These are shocks. These are paradigm-shattering disclosure items. People can't handle it. People aren't ready for the truth. What we see through these studies is that not only are people are ready when they're not even ready. When it's a spontaneous thing that just kind of happens that they were not seeking or looking for. They're ready for it, even when they're not ready, because they have predominantly positive long-term effects. Now, with the disclosure of ETs, non-human intelligence, whatever they want to call them now, ETs, aliens, is that a spontaneous awakening? No. But it is, on a grand scale, an awakening of a new reality for everybody, right? Human beings can handle it, okay? Human beings can handle it. Predominantly, it will be positive long-term effect throughout the entire populace of the planet. I would bet every single dollar that you had on it, and my own money, not just your money. I would bet all of our money, okay? I'd bet all of our money on it. With great confidence, in fact. I wouldn't even have to watch the game because I know it's a winning bet. I think that's my big takeaway here. And also, everything's connected, man. I mean, isn't it cool how connected this all is? Okay, we're going to move on. I'm going to randomly open the Sensitive and Confidential, the Disclosure Project Briefing Document 2025, which has been made public for the first time ever. Greer has been doing these reports since 1993 for the Clinton administration. It was the first time he was asked to do it. Let's just open up. I opened up to page 66, and it's number. And the thing that I'm looking at says number 6, so that's pretty cool. Let me put my glasses on. I didn't have them on that whole time, and I'm wondering why. It's got a picture of the 1947 White Sands UFO. Number 6, UFO crash retrieval, White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico, July 4th, 1947. Ring a bell? Does that ring a bell to you? That specific date? Specific details surrounding this UFO retrieval operation were provided by researcher Timothy Cooper via a retired United States Air Force Master Sergeant. His source was a first sergeant who was stationed at Alamogordo Field, later to become Holloman Air Force Base. On the night of July 4th, 1947, a large disc-shaped craft landed on the north area of White Sands Missile Range. The object measured 150 feet in diameter and featured a low-rise dome in the center. Upon arrival at the scene, Ascania camera crew members from Alamogordo were ordered to take both still photographs and motion picture footage of the object. The area where the disc came down was already surrounded with military vehicles equipped with both searchlights and spotlights. In addition, mobile light towers were employed to further illuminate the area. By 2 a.m. the next morning, some of the technicians were allowed to climb on top of the outer rim of the object. They were wearing black rubber suits and were carrying Geiger counters, presumably checking for radiation. By 3 a.m., additional scientists and engineers had arrived. They began setting up a canvas blind, which surrounded the craft. Nearby was a temporary command post and storage tents. There were multiple guards surrounding the entire area. By 7 a.m., the Ascania crews, Ascania, A-S-K-A-N-I-A, the Ascania crews, were ordered to vacate the area and return to Alamogordo. All crew members were then debriefed at Alamogordo by CIC personnel and signed non-disclosure agreements. Interesting. Now let's just backtrack a little bit and see. This was number 6 out of what? Oh my God, I just saw. We got to go back. Section 4, crash retrievals of extraterrestrial vehicles, select cases. We are going to go. I'm getting the chills right here. Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946. Ring a bell? Dayton, Ohio, my hometown. It was 1946 when 6-year-old Tex Martin accompanied his father, Jack Martin, who installed aircraft instruments at Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio. His co-workers ate lunch together in a small cafeteria furnished with picnic tables, which were directly connected to a much larger hangar. Upon arrival, both Tex and his father noticed unusual activity. Multiple military vehicles were parked in front of the hangar doors and, quote, Army men, end quote, were present. Inside, there was a large sliding panel door which separated the cafeteria from the main portion of the hangar. As Tex entered the cafeteria area, this door was just closing, but not before he got a brief glimpse inside. To his surprise, Tex recalled seeing 2 18-wheel tractor-trailer vehicles with mysterious hardware/debris on top, which were covered by a standard-issue military tarp. He could also see what appeared to be light-colored disc-shaped craft, which measured approximately 20 feet in diameter. It had tripod landing gear and a flat band which wrapped around its outer circumference. Lying next to the craft on the hangar floor were 3 bodies on stretchers. They were brownish in color and had oversized pear-shaped heads. Each body measured 3.5 to 4 feet in height. He could also see many blankets laying on the floor, and soldiers appeared to be folding up a large tarp. A second account of this incident originated from a first-hand military witness that was stationed at Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio in 1946. The source served as a private/clerk specialist and worked in the field of records management. It was his job to maintain the files of all personnel who worked at the base, including U.S. Army and U.S. Navy. He was delivering a group of records to Building 18 and encountered a friend who worked in base security. His associate asked if he would like to see a strange aerial craft that had recently arrived at the base. He followed the guard who led him further inside the facility and was shocked to see a disc-shaped object resting on the floor. It had previously arrived from a railroad flat car from Arkansas. The craft measured 15 feet in diameter and was 7 feet high. Running along the outer circumference of the craft was an 18-foot flat section that incorporated what appeared to be 10 by 15 feet transparent windows. The craft had no seams, no weld marks, no hatches, no rivets or fasteners of any kind. It was completely devoid of seats, control panels, or instruments. And its only interior feature was a 3-foot diameter, quote, central column, end quote, that ran from its floor to upper ceiling. The security guard mentioned that several scientists had made attempts to enter the craft, but that their efforts had failed. Diamond-tipped drill bits had been used to pierce the exterior skin of the craft, but were unsuccessful. After about 10 minutes of examining the craft, the security guard became nervous and asked his friend to vacate the area. So, okay, let's take our last break. That was an excerpt. Oh, I mean, that's some interesting stuff. Actually, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's going to do it, actually. Let's keep this under an hour because it's getting late. And I want you to get some sleep. I'm worried about you. Okay? Watch Invincible, the cartoon on Prime. I mean, it's a little gory at times, but it's pretty damn good. Anyway, Creature Commandos are pretty good on HBO Max, too. Anyway, I love you. I hope you love yourself. RyanSingerComedy.com has tour dates. Check those out. We're going to be recording filming a comedy special this summer. I got to lock that in, and I will. And you'll know more details soon. Anyway, until then, I hope you're doing well. I can't wait to share Paranormal Carnival with you next week. And then we're on the road, baby. We're expedition style. And, hope to see you at a live show. If not, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.